Welcome to the Ad Tech Forum, our 5-part series on supply, brought to you by Cadent. Today, we're excited to have our guest, Katya Shkolnik.
Katya Shkolnik has been the head of partnerships at Future Today for 6 years, managing aspects of the programmatic ecosystem and collaborating on new product launches. She's an OTT ambassador and frequently speaks at industry events. She has also spent 5 years at AOL, where she sold the ad tech ad server and launched the programmatic marketplace on the West Coast. She also has had prior roles at Say Media, Tribal Fusion, and several startups.
Welcome, Katya.
Hi, guys. Super happy to be here. God, all that experience makes me feel like a veteran here. But
You're a veteran.
Yeah, very happy to talk to you guys.
You're a vet. That's why you're here. And we're so excited to have you here. So, Katya, to kick things off, how do premium publishers differentiate themselves in such a competitive marketplace? Just how do you differentiate yourself?
I think it's all about quality content, to be honest. So Future Today's user session is on average 2 to 2.5 hours. How do we do that? We get like the titles that people are engaged in, the titles that people want to watch full episodes of, full movies. And we do it in a free ad-supported way. So basically exposing this content to anyone in the States that can or cannot afford, the subscription fees. So we've definitely focused on content. That's our drive. And that relevancy actually adds to, demographical, that helps the brands basically by focusing on the demographical aspects, content relevancy and contextual, which we can get into a little bit later. And also, any rich data segments that we have on our audiences are then, kind of funneled up to the brands. So I would say user experience is also important. So it's definitely a delicate play between what your ROI needs to be in order to cover the cost of the content versus, what's too many ads. We definitely want to stay away from duplication. And, and there's some other items, if you'd like, I can get into more.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. And this kind of leads us into our next question, which is what criteria should advertisers consider when evaluating premium publishers for their ad campaigns, especially in terms of brand safety and audience engagement? You obviously mentioned user experience, but in your opinion, what should advertisers be evaluating?
I think that, advertisers should look obviously at reach. If I was a brand, I'd be looking at retention and again, user sessions are very important because that means the content is sticky, interesting, relevant. Something else that brand safety right now is often allocated to wide ops and pixelate. And I believe that most of the SSPs and platforms, even some DSPs and agencies, already have some protective mechanisms built in. And so in CTV, I guess it's a little bit less of an issue than in, say, display, video, or mobile, because the nature of I call them commercials, but the nature of the creatives or the pre-mid roles themselves are more all immersive. And there's a lot of finances that goes into the production of those ads. So brand safety out of the box is I believe that it's a little bit less of an issue, as long as you run the relevant campaigns for the audiences. Where there are some difficulties in CTV are more around, fraud. And whenever there's a lot of, I believe whenever there's, just from my experience of, 15 plus working in the industry, whenever something's hot, there's always these side industries that kind of pop up around it to see how to game it. So where I feel like there's more of concern is not around ad quality, but it's more about, or even content quality, but it's more about, who can play with the system and figure out ways around it. So, we have 2 schools of content that we control as publishers. So we have a huge family and co-viewing section, Happy Kids, where we built out CoComelon, Lego, and all the top brands. So I know a lot about brand quality and brands because it's really difficult to monetize those co-viewing audiences. So for that reason, for example, for our kids and family, and I might just be getting into the weeds, and it's not relevant to everybody, but I know that Paramount and Disney and everyone is kind of working through the same thing here. We have to figure out who can, without passing any PII, we have to figure out brand appropriate creatives for those audiences, for the family co-viewing living room experience. And how we do that is we have a kit safe platform. And so we actually pre-fetch and screen every single creative before we approve it to run on the apps. That's aside from obviously all the blocks and all the issues that the brands have themselves. I don't know if that answered or if you have more questions on that specific question.
No, that's great. That leads us to the next question, actually. How does that quality content drive ad performance and actual user engagement? And as an SSP, like, how do they help facilitate this for a premium publisher like yourself?
Yeah. Well, so specifically in our case, and this wouldn't be the same for the other broadcasters you've talked to, but the whole ease of our growth strategy and ease of our user experience is not asking them for any first party data. So we have almost 2 billion impressions a month. And so, 2 billion impressions a month with like multiple millions a day. And how we've done that is by not asking the users for any emails or personally identifiable information, which creates a little bit of a conundrum. And this is one class of publishers that I actually talked to some SSPs about yesterday because I wanted to see a bird's eye view of not just my experience, but everybody in our little sphere of CTV publishers. And so what's going on there is when you have no first party data, you have to rely on third party segments. So I think to give LiveRamp a plug, but there's a few different partners that work with it. LiveRamp is more behavioral. And so we kind of depend on their extrapolations. And then contextual has been big, and we've been working with Iris to kind of like to catalog and to inventory all of our segments, which I believe, and I've been preaching, is much more valuable even than behavioral, kind of inferences. So I'm hoping that we rely more on contextual markers because I feel like that's incredible and immediate ad relevancy. I think that publishers, there's our camp that doesn't have first party data. And then there's another camp of publishers that are premium that have it, but feel like it's very precious. And so they don't want to share it. And so I feel like, I'm just waiting for the day when we rely more on these contextual markers because for developers, and I'm not talking about fast, I'm more thinking AVOD, that's not subscription based and not linear, but we have all of that rich information on what each user is consuming. And so we're just waiting for the industry to get there and rely more on that because there the relevance is there and the user experience will be great because folks are seeing ads that are like, you're watching a romance or a drama and you see an ad for chocolates or flowers. Like how much more relevant can you be? So I'm just waiting, and I love Field at Iris, and I'm thinking that there's some other companies that are also popping up right now, but Iris probably has been in the game the longest. And I'm hoping that there's a larger adoption of that because first party data, in my book at least, is a little bit tricky.
Right. And especially in the connected TV space in the streaming world, it is a challenge. And you mentioned a couple of things, the importance of contextual, the importance of behavioral. Those are obviously very hot topics and things that we are all working on together. But when we talk about...
can I add one more thing?
Sure, of course.
I forgot to mention DMA. So when you have a publisher at scale, specifically right now in this political season, and we accept political with caution, but we do, it's really important also to have a good sense of where your audiences live and what kind of demographic profiles, what kind of belief systems they have. I think that also is very rich.
And how do you feel an SSP in particular can help premium publishers, leverage the data and insights they have to optimize, their inventory and optimize their inventory monetization strategies?
So SSPs actually have SSPs have the direct data integrations with all of the behavioral partners. So even if you don't have first party data, they can make inferences based on cross matching from different pools that they get of information that even we don't have. So often when we sell a campaign we actually pull down in the SSP where we traffic it, we can have a pull down menu and we can choose every single behavioral layering system. Just add a small fee to the buy and depend on the SSP's rich data that they actually have these huge multi-million-dollar contracts with, or I don't even know what the price is. I'm throwing it out there. However, it's more than we can, a small self-funded publisher, afford. And so that is very important. And then again, I really believe that we've integrated with Iris for contextual, and they have, the SSPs also have. And so I feel like there can be more communication about what the user's watching in real time. and then providing relevant ads that are, again, stickier, where user involvement is deeper and more, just more appropriate, basically. And that usually has brought to ROI. Another thing that some of the SSPs are pushing are new innovative units like SKUs and some rich media components. I think Brightline, Innovid, and there's a few other companies right now that are working on that. And I think that's really interesting as well. And I think that that'll be the future. And there will actually have some actionable data on ROI, which has been hard in TV because it's more of like a usual commercial experience where it's more branding. So now we're actually getting into some sort of performance metrics. And that's, again, it's just a start of that. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but something for you guys to watch out for.
Amazing. Thank you, Katya. And this actually brings us to the end of this episode. I wanted to thank everyone for joining this episode of the AdTech Forum. It's sponsored by Cadent. We've covered a wide range of topics with our guest, Katya Shkolnik. Stay tuned for future episodes, and please follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you, Katya. Thank you, Jeremy. And see you all next week.